Hello, I'm your host Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of Banterflix, where each week we talk about some of the movies and shows you might want to seek out and a few you might want to avoid. Let's see what we'll be talking about tonight. Our summer specials continues. We look back at some of our favourite blockbusters by a different director. This episode we're talking about Oscar-winning filmmaker Chris Nolan, who's helmed the likes of Inception, The Dark Knight, Interstellar and Oppenheimer. So that's what we've lined up for you tonight. Joining me in the studio is the lovely Meban.
Hi, good to be here.
And Claire McCullough.
Hi.
Hello to you both. So we're going to be talking all things Chris Nolan, because as we record, we will have just had The Odyssey has hit cinemas, and we will review it next week when we return to normal programming on the show. Take a little break. We're having a bit of fun here over July. But as I say, we're going to be talking specifically about Chris Nolan. As I say at the start of every show, we cannot go through every film within the director's back catalogue. But Chris Nolan, $6 billion worldwide in terms of his box office as a rough figure, 7th highest grossing filmmaker of all time. So there clearly are fans out there. Claire, I'm going to come to you first. Before we get into our specific picks that we've each chosen for tonight's show, are you a fan generally of Chris Nolan as a filmmaker?
Yes, I think he's an incredible filmmaker. I think I'm more of a fan of his older stuff. His most recent works are definitely targeted more towards the bros, with the likes of Dunkirk, Oppenheimer, very long-winded films for the bros.
Hey, you know, nothing wrong with movies for the bros.
Do we see anything wrong with that?
No.
Well,
Here we are. If ever there was...
I hear you. I do hear
If
you.
ever there was a picture, if you looked in the dictionary and there was the photo of bros, I think, you know, the lovely Alan and I would definitely be there. I know where you're coming from, and I guess maybe that's possibly a response. And I know that may or may not be one of the films we're discussing specifically on the show with Oppenheimer. We think of the Barbenheimer when we had to decide where we're going to go see Barbie, or we're going to go see Oppenheimer, or where we're going to go see both. And I guess there was a lot of cinema managers, you know, rubbing their hands together, thinking about the money they were going to bring in. And it was, both those films were huge box office successes, I should say. Alan, for you, you know, as a fellow bro, are you a fan of Chris Nolan?
I think in general, he does big, epic scale well. So he is good at directing things. He is good at throwing 300 characters at you over 3 hours, and you don't get that lost as to who they are because they have a place and a way. He's quite good at doing characters that don't need a backstory because their very being kind of very quickly on screen tells you who they are. He's good at allowing music to take over from dialogue, one of those great things. So it doesn't even have to be Hans Zimmer.
A lot of people don't like his dialogue, though, the fact that he tries to mix it naturally.
And then sometimes he just puts the music over the top of it and drowns it out because you don't even need to read the subtitles. The music is more important. And occasionally, you just get the feeling, though, that he would be lost if you gave him kind of like there's a 4-person dinner party film, The Invite, out as we're recording. He would be rubbish at that because I don't think he could do that kind of intense, smoking, intimate kind of thing where people are just about to rage over each other. But give him an entire war or the ability to do a bit of sci-fi and change times and things, then he's kind of in his element because it's just normal for him. So I think he's very specific. I'm surprised he's actually not one of the even higher grossing. So because I guess it's every couple of years, every 2-3 years he produces a film. So we don't actually get that much. The one thing I've noticed is I haven't seen Dark Knight or any of that kind of part of his oeuvre. So that I'm mostly seeing his big blockbustery things, which, as you would say, are quite bro-based at the moment.
Well, Alan, I would definitely say, if you're talking as a fellow bro, I would say into that kind of territory.
I feel very uncomfortable with one of these bros, but I'm just embracing it for the comedy value here.
So, I mean, I think if ever there was two people that do not fit within the manosphere or anything like that, I think it would be us. But you've mentioned like The Dark Knight, Batman Returns, Dark Knight Rises. I know people have their mixed feelings about. But there was a director who really kind of brought all the things you've mentioned, all the things you mentioned as well.
Did he bring those to that?
He brought that
tiny universe,
that seriousness, that sense of spectacle. Like with The Dark Knight, he pretty much gave us a crime drama in the mold of Heat or The Untouchables, but it just happened to have Batman and the Joker, and
Okay.
it had a fantastic performance. I know a lot of people do like that gravelly Christian Bale voice from the Dark Knight movies, but it also gave us like the kind of definitive for me, as much as I love Jack Nicholson, Joker with Heath Ledger, the late great Heath Ledger. But look, surprisingly, like the Dark Knight, I know for my pick, I'll come to in just a minute. I toyed with the Dark Knight, particularly actually Batman Begins. I was going to say Batman Returns, particularly Batman Begins, which I think gets really, it goes under the radar because it was very much a love letter to Frank Miller and his style, and at our very own Northern Ireland's own Liam Neeson. What can go possibly wrong there? And I thought that did a great job of bringing back the Dark Knight from the kind of campiness that we had seen with Batman and Robin, which I have a soft spot for, and George Clooney's batsuit with nipples, and brought it back from that, and I guess has made a major part in kind of why superheroes, whether you're tired of them or not, why they are still such big screen fodder. But for our first pick, it's going to be Alan's choice, and before you tell us what it is, let's play a clip.
Build a town, build it fast. If we don't let scientists bring their families, we'll never get the best.
Why would we go to the middle of nowhere for who knows how long?
Why? Why? How about because this is the most important thing to ever happen in the history of the world?
You're the great improviser, but this you can't do in your head.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world? Chances are near zero. Near zero. What do you want for theory alone? Zero would be nice.
So, Alan, of course, Oppenheimer, Oscar-winning success. Chris Nolan, finally, this was the film that saw him finally get the accolades of his peers at the Academy, taking home Best Director, Best Picture. Clearly, you are a fan of Oppenheimer.
I'm a fan of about the first 2/3 of it, but that's enough because it's a 3-hour film. So the first 2 hours, if you get a good film in that, that's pretty good. You don't have to stay to the end, but I do recommend you do. I mean, this is the very much less fluffy half of Barbenheimer. I mean, if people did go and see these back to back, I'm not sure were they wise, Jim. It's terribly dark. I think it deals with a kind of it's an interesting character piece because Oppenheimer is rarely off screen. He's nearly every scene he'll be there, kind of doing a Cillian Murphy kind of
You don't have
glare
the same
or something.
as Cillian now.
I don't, but
You don't have those gorgeous blue eyes.
But it's an interesting choice because you're trying to basically figure out the ethics of this character. Is he doing this because this is the way to survive in America? Is he doing this because he believes in the science? Is he doing this because he thinks it might win or stop a war? Is he doing this because he feels forced into it? And then you get the ethics of, do they trust him? As you get towards kind of interrogation scene in the end. And so there's a kind of a, Einstein appears weirdly at a lake, and then suddenly it makes sense later on. But it's very kind of grey, grainy. I liked it. I love the scene. There's a lot of music in it. And then my memory is that as we get to the point where they're doing the test of the bomb, and there is no music, and they're watching it nearly in silence. They see the tremendous power of this thing, and we understand on screen through their eyes nearly more than, it's not a particularly big or good special effect, but we see in them the horror of what they have done, and them nearly in an instant going, is this right, what we've done in terms of creating an atomic bomb? Because we've just, if that wasn't a test and that was real, what would happen? So we're kind of, I think it captures all of that stuff really well. It's based on a biography, and it's a good read if you want to kind of see the rest of it. But I think it caught, for me, it was epic in space, epic in scale. It had that kind of large cast of different kind of physicists and characters, and it kind of got the notion of, it was a complicated time. Not only was America trying to win a war, but it was also then trying to figure out what to do with these people, and whether or not they could be trusted. Would they go and work for somebody else? And I think it just kind of, it worked well, except I think the last interrogation thing, it doesn't kind of go as well. My only problem with the whole thing is that there's only one character who's a woman in it of any notion, and she has to get her top off. I mean, why did Florence Pugh have to be treated that way? Because it's not really necessary even for the scene, and it stands out as there's so few women, and then you literally objectify them for a few minutes. I know she seemed to be very happy with the scene and how it played out, but you're just kind of going, it felt like it went far too far.
And I think, I could be wrong, I think this is the first within Nolan's back catalogue that we've seen him doing a sex scene as a 43-year-old so-called child, as I don't want to giggle when I say those words, but that I think is the first time we've seen that. Now, Claire, correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't seen Oppenheimer, so I don't know, listening to,
May not have sold
to Alan, I think I do really like it, like Alan, and I don't want to repeat everything he said. The only thing I do want to add is you talked about Cillian Murphy. You kind of give a bit of a, just for the camera, give us a bit more. I don't know if that's more Robert De Niro.
That's a bit more Shakespeare than
Cillian Murphy. But what I love, and Nolan has talked about this from when he first met Cillian Murphy, his obsession with his eyes and those kind of piercing blue eyes. And as someone who's had the pleasure to interview and be up close and personal, even I find myself kind of drawn like a moth to the flame with those eyes. But how he used in this film the IMAX camera, that is, everything, it's big, and it just uses that to show those kind of micro expressions that Cillian Murphy is just, he can do a lot with his face and do seemingly nothing. Now, you haven't seen this. You chose Barbie at the time.
I chose Barbie.
And I guess, that there's fun to be had.
It was a good film.
Barbie, we're not here, as we come back to it, the bros in the studio.
But not made by Christopher Nolan.
We were fans, and I think even Chris Nolan went as far as to say, I think that he was a fan of Barbie. I think he made a big thing of going out to see it and talking about it in the cinema. But has this been a film now within, you mentioned earlier on, Nolan's back catalogue. Would this be one that on a Friday night you'd be interested? You have to start early because, as Alan said, it's a long film. Watch it on a DVD or Blu-ray or VOD. Don't watch it on TV where there's ad breaks. You'll be there all evening. But would this be something you'd be interested in sitting down to watch?
It's not high on my watch list, but that's not to say that I'll never watch it, but I'll probably watch it in like 2 sections. I can't see me sitting down for a full 3 hours. To me, Shrek is the perfect length of a film. It's an hour and a half, hour and 20, perfect. I don't think any story needs to be 3 hours long.
So 2 and a bit Shreks for Oppenheimer then. So, okay. Oppenheimer, I think of the 3, that is the most recent within Nolan's back catalogue that we've picked here. I guess you followed on from Tenet, which I as much as I love Nolan, very much like mixed bag, and I know we don't have time to discuss that, but that's Tenet. That was his previous venture within sci-fi. I did toy, as I mentioned, with The Dark Knight. I was kind of torn as well to maybe get a reference into Interstellar, a film I absolutely adore. But for my choice, I had to go back to 2010. And before I talk what it is, let's play a clip. So, of course, back to 2010, Inception, just a film. I know there's people who are not fans of this movie. It's going to be interesting to see where you two weigh in on this. I know the lovely Hugh Audley-Smee from Film Hub is not a fan, who I can't remember exactly what he has on his Letterboxd review for the film, but Tosh, I think, features in there. This was a film, took me by surprise, and I still... So many things I love about it in terms of Leonardo DiCaprio as the leading man, Tom Hardy, have to dream a little bigger, darling. The sheer concept of exploring the use of dreams and time. And this, for me, other than the Batman stuff, was the real first experience for me of Hans Zimmer. And that kind of massive, like the blams that he is the expert of. And I know that Nolan has moved away from Zimmer of late in his last few features, and that's something that I miss, but I do want to give considerable praise as well to Wally Fissner, the film's cinematographer. Just a masterclass, and so much done. We've talked about this before, a little bit, I guess, with Oppenheimer and talking about just generally with Nolan. The fact that he is this obsession that drives him is trying to do as much as he can in camera, practically. Like, I know I'm jumping about here, like in Tenet, it was cheaper for them to buy an old airplane to destroy it rather than use it as a special effect. Here, there's sequences like with rooms tilting and moving around. That's done practically, and I think that's why, for me, for a film that's already nearly 16 years old, when I look back at it now, and it is of the three films, I'm going to actually, there will be something I will raise, Claire, with your choice, but with Inception, it's probably the Nolan film I find myself, it's like Jaws, Shawshank Redemption. If I'm trawling the channels and I find it on, whether it's 10 minutes in, whether it's 50 minutes, nearly an hour and a half in, I will watch it. This is the film that makes me think I want to see Chris Nolan do Bond. And it's the closest we've seen to Chris Nolan doing Bond in certain sequences. Like there's a sequence near the end and it's snow and it just arcs back to On Her Majesty's Secret.
The snow is I think the snow scene's the best bit of Inception,
yes,
other than the actual concept of planting ideas in people's heads. And then what you could do with that kind of from an evil point of view. But yeah, the snow scene. But again, that's back to my thing of he does epic scale. You're not just going to have a few bits of snow, you're going to have a lot of snow. But Bond, yeah, I could.
I would like to see him do Bond.
This is the thing though, Claire, it's one of those things where you go, is it almost like too good? Would it be the thing, if you think of Bond, Chris Nolan, those things, two things
Time-traveling Bond.
Go to get, and I know we've got Denis Villeneuve who's going to be helming the next 007 when it eventually comes out, but we will have to wait and see. But look, before I get into a full-on gush fest about how much I love Inception and just that sense of all the things I've already mentioned and talking about score, visuals, Leonardo DiCaprio, dreamboat that is, of course, Tom Hardy. Really impressive ensemble. You've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you have Elliot Page, Michael Caine, of course. It wouldn't be a Chris Nolan film without Michael Caine. And it's just that right level for me. And as it is a key scene, key bit of dialogue I always think back. And it's a reference I always think of anytime I'm complaining about a film. Particularly now in this kind of, we think of the Netflix era where people are usually on their phones and watching a film or are distracted. There's a key scene, Elliot Page turns to someone and says, so whose dream are we in now? And you have to keep up. They're not going to sit and constantly re-explain the plot, tell you what's happening. It's up to you. And that's the thing. Chris Nolan treats his audience with a certain degree of intelligence. And as I say, it's your job as the viewer to keep up. So, as I say, I've been a bit gushy. I have been a bit kind of waxing lyrical about Inception. I admit there are people that are not fans of this film. So it'd be interesting to see of the two of you, if were you going to weigh in here. I'll come to you first. What's your thoughts on Inception?
I think as a companion piece, I think Tenet is better than Inception. So I think I'd much prefer it. And I very much see them as like, he did one and then he kind of learned from that and he twisted things differently and did the next one. So I think Tenet for me works better than this. And I always remember people at the time said, oh, if you go back and see it a second time, it makes a whole lot more sense. And that was the days before you had a cinema pass for a month or whatever. And so you'd have to pay money again. It's like, no, let's just kind of read the plot at some point and try and figure it out. So it didn't grab me enough that I wanted to go back. And I've never returned to it.
Disappointed, I'm disappointed because I wouldn't say Tenet for me has big ideas. I don't think it executes them. And Tenet is actually a film I know you've just made the point that now we have cinema passes, we can go see a film the number of times and still not get charged. It's a film I think for me benefits more from a repeated viewing than Inception. Inception, it for me it's all there, and you're left by the end in kind of Blade Runner-esque kind of finale where it's left for you to decide, are we in the dream space? Are we in reality? It's up for you to decide. Claire, what about you? Where are you going to weigh in here with Inception?
So I enjoyed Inception whenever it came out. I think I'm like you, Alan. I've only seen it once. Now, I wanted to love it more than I did. I remember it came out around the same time as Shutter Island, and Shutter Island grabbed me by the throat, and I loved it so much. So out of the two of them, I was just so all biz with Shutter Island.
Two Leo films.
Two Leo films came out really in close conjunction to each other, and I was a bigger fan of Shutter Island, but I do remember loving the epicness of Inception, the music, Hans Zimmer. I remember it being a great film, but I just liked Shutter Island more. And I have never returned to Inception for the reason that it's another film that you need to watch on the big screen. You need to be completely taken in by it. And I feel like you're wasting your time watching it at home. You're not doing it justice.
So what you're
not
saying,
giving it
Claire,
the love it deserves.
so what you're saying, if there's a film programmer out there who's already maybe thinking about doing a screening of Oppenheimer with free ice cream, if there's a screening of Inception with free ice cream, you're going to bankrupt these cinemas with ice cream.
Well, this is it. Well, do you know what? Why don't they do like a Christopher Nolan month? Play his classics. Play the Prestige, Memento, The Dark Knight, that trilogy.
Now, Claire, you might have given the game away. Possibly one of those three films you have chosen for your pick when we asked you to pick out a Chris Nolan blockbuster. And before you tell us and put us out of our misery of which of those three, let's play a clip.
The audience loved it.
This trick is top notch.
You need to celebrate.
A real magician tries to invent something new. It's something that other magicians will scratch their heads over.
I suppose you have such a trick.
Actually, I do. It's the one they're gonna remember me for.
What happened?
It was the greatest magic trick I've ever seen. I need to know how he does it.
He has no trick. It's real.
So that's a look at the trailer for Prestige, which is, of course, your pick of those three films. It is there. So 2006, early Chris Nolan. I think this just is something he made in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, following on from Insomnia, an Al Pacino film I absolutely adore, with a great performance by the late, great Robin Williams. The reason why I said, I think I mentioned this earlier on, there was one thing I wanted to talk about your pick. And it was the fact that I have not seen The Prestige in a long, long time. And you gave me an excuse to go back and rewatch it, and I thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyed myself. This was a film I loved at the time. I did go see it in the cinema a couple of times. You've got the lovely Hugh Jackman, you've got Christian Bale in there. What's not to like? You've got a very young Scarlett Johansson. And yeah, it was an absolute pleasure to go back and rewatch it and remind myself what a good film it is. And I think you mentioned this when we were exchanging WhatsApps before trying to get you on the show. One that now goes under the radar.
It does go on under the radar, and I love that you made the connection of it was during the time between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, because there is that sort of comic book-esque behind it. You can tell it's taken inspiration from Insomnia as well, the darkness from Insomnia, but also the Batman trilogy. And obviously he's got the characters in it as well. So you said earlier it's Wolverine versus Batman. Two guys that used to work together. They were like a twosome. Something goes horribly wrong. I don't want to do any spoilers whatsoever. There's a magic trick that goes horribly wrong. And so this is a film of revenge, but it's cat and mouse chase the whole way through it as well. And just, I guess it's pettiness. It's going out of your way to ruin the other person's life.
Do you know what, Claire? We're going to go full circle here. It's about bros. Would they not just get together and
Not bros
talk
anymore.
talk about...
But when bros fall out,
When bros fall out, just get together and talk
when Sam and Elon no longer get on, this is the kind of thing that happens.
Is this what happened between Trump and Elon?
Look, it's a sense of that how far these two will go to top each other. How you look at kind of about the importance of misdirection, the mystique of trying to figure, and that allure of trying to figure out how a trick is done. Literally, you have Hugh Jackman literally by the end of this film, without going into spoilers, almost literally having to kill himself literally every night just to kind of keep himself ahead of the game. I know we are pushed for time because, Alan, we want to hear your thoughts on the Prestige and very quickly get some kind of reference into Dunkirk. But I just want to say one last thing. The other thing I'd forgotten about the Prestige, the masterclass, having David Bowie in the role, just showing up as Tesla, still chef's kiss for a film. Alan, the Prestige.
I haven't seen it, but I am intrigued, having kind of seen a little bit of the plot as I did a little bit of homework. I would like to see it. I like the idea that this must be better than the current war from 2019, when some of the same characters, some of them were in a particularly bad film. It does appear that those characters get used a lot, I think because they're kind of in our kind of psyche, because they're Western inventors come technology people, so we use them a lot, whether it's Doctor Who or in films. But I would kind of like to see this version because it sounds like it's probably just got the Christopher Nolan sparkle, the little bit of magic. So him doing magic and kind of tricks things, thinking that's interesting because he will use he will have that range and epic nature to it, even though it probably appears quite small at the time.
Do you know what it is? And I think you've just hit the nail on the head, and apologies for cutting across you. It's Chris Nolan doing his big epic visuals that you see, but he's not been given carte blanche with a budget that can do whatever you want. He's been told to work within the confines of, I'm picking a number out the top of my head, 20, 30 million, that's what you have for your film. And it's that sense of, you see a filmmaker being able to maximize every single penny that he has on screen. As I come back to chef's kiss, David Bowie as Tesla.
Oh, thank you for the recommendation.
You know what?
I get ice cream and I will sit and watch it.
Alan doesn't need free ice cream.
I will buy my own ice cream and see it.
But it's story driven, it's character driven, it's exciting, so many twists and turns. Fantastic.
Yeah, brilliant choice. I think of the three, I think it's, as much as I love Inception, and I do love Inception, the Prestige, just for the fact that I think it has now, subsequently, when we look back through Chris Nolan's back catalogue, has went under the radar. So great choice, Claire. But look, this has pretty much wrapped up the show, wrapped up our series of specials throughout July. So all that's left for me to do now is thank my two guests here in the studio. So thank you very much, Alan.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much, Claire.
Thanks, Jim.
Thanks very much for watching at home. We'll be back next week with back to normal, I guess, talking all things cinematic and our usual brand of nonsense. But for now, until then, goodbye.